2021, I want to talk about a list that I made of all the things that have potentially happened already in the year 2021.
Okay.
So what's happened so far? This is a quiz time. First thing, pandemic is over. Coffee leaf rust has disappeared. Politics are resolved. Everyone's happy now. The climate stopped changing. That's my favorite one. I can hear out of my left ear perfectly again. I mean, last time we talked, I was like, done, right? All espresso machines can now manage themselves. We were just talking about that. Everyone on the planet is now treated fairly and equally. That one was a little difficult, but got that done. And then I won the lottery. And then I made a really good batch of chili today. Just which one do you think is true? The correct answer, I made a really good batch of chili today. That is what's happened in the year 2021.
Quick little story on chili.
Okay.
I used to work for the Kansas City Royals in the office in there. Every year we had a chili cook-off for the back office people, and I won it 3 years in a row.
What?
And the last year I won it, I finally disclosed my secret weapon, and it's espresso.
The serious repercussions of just tinkering on espresso machines while just kind of playing with water and electricity.
When working with something that can kill you, you have to have experience and confidence to navigate that. And if you don't, there's a very real possibility of serious injury to yourself or other people. So that's one of the difficult conversations I have to have with cafe owners, is trying to walk them back from trying to fix something themselves and actually having a professional come in, diagnose, repair the machine. The danger is completely there, and that's why you have professionals who do have the knowledge and confidence to hopefully not hurt themselves, but at least they know the possibilities there.
Both of these scenarios are happening, yet not always and not frequently. Where would you start my guidance? Like, what should I do?
The troubleshooting path is either going to be electrical or mechanical in nature. So if you remove power, that just leaves mechanical, which means taking apart the valve and seeing why it's not making a correct seal. But the point to start is it mechanical or is it electrical?
When there's no power going to this heating, the hot water assembly, is it naturally shut so it can't let water out, right? So
the key is electromagnetic.
Right.
So it needs electricity to become a magnet, and the magnet pulls the metal plunger up to open the valve. So without electricity, it's no longer a magnet, and the metal's dropped.
They were just kind of doing their daily thing. They hit the hot water button, and it stayed on. They went to turn the machine off, and it continued to go. And that directs to a mechanical issue. And Marty, I think you said the same thing. It's probably calcified, or might have a little speck of something in there that's keeping it from shutting. Last week I went out there, took it apart. It looked really sharp. It was pretty clean. Maybe in the disassembly part of that, maybe it was just kind of flushed itself out. Machine's running, it's on. They push the hot water button, and it doesn't stop. When she shut the machine off, it did. That time. Could we walk through like what that might be as far as what kind of electrical issues could be happening that would cause it to stick on?
Strictly the switch is the most, it's starting at the most likely. So the switch is the most likely source. It's the one that makes the connection that sends power to the coil. They're also, depending on what type of machine it is, could be something with the motherboard, but you always want to work towards the motherboard rather than start with it. So, and that's a common misconception that I experience, is it's the board, when it's typically something much simpler than that.
Working back from the board to the hot water assembly, like if we took it apart and cleaned it, put it back together, would it have anything to do with this at all? So it doesn't matter like which box it goes to?
And in La Mazzocco equipment, the left keypad is always going to be the master keypad. The hot water is connected to that left keypad. So there could be something wrong with the keypad.
So if they had two other buttons on that same keypad that were having some inconsistencies to it, would that also kind of point to maybe it being a keypad issue and not the motherboard issue?
Potentially.
How do you test that?
How do you test a keypad? Unfortunately, there's not a good way with our equipment to test the keypad. You infer that a keypad is bad based on, in our equipment with flow meters, you test that it's a DC circuit. And the only way to start testing a DC circuit is starting with the flow meters. Are the flow meters the correct resistance? What is the DC voltage going to the flow meter? So disconnect all the keypads, all the flow meters, get a baseline DC reading on the red wire that's doing the output, and then slowly, one by one, plug in each component and see how it affects that DC voltage. So typically a bad keypad will drop that DC voltage enough where it makes a difference. And that's how you infer that a keypad is bad. There's a different baseline voltage for each equipment. So like a Linear Classic is going to have between typically 18 to 22 volt DC output for a healthy board. GB5 is going to be 16 volts. Linear PB, KB90, those machines are going to have 12 volts. So it's going to be very important to know what that baseline is in order to effectively troubleshoot this issue, because you very easily can get confused and think this is supposed to be 18 volts on a Linear PB, so obviously I have a bad transformer that's failing. And that is an $800 mistake that you could make.
And that is why I call you.
Unless you take that switch that's non-momentary and you put it on an AV, which has a brain, in other words, in essence, it's a timer on that hot water. Even if you flip it and it stays on, if it's on an AV Zuko, it will time out and shut off. But here's the problem. You leave it in that position, you go to one of the other groups, the volumetric button groups that you were showing there, and you hit one of those, more than likely that hot water spigot's going to come back on you, because that's asking to be on, and you're exercising some electronics in there, and it's going to start that timer again on that. The toggle, correct me if I'm wrong, that's for a non-volumetric machine. And John, on that machine, it would run the hot water until you said,
oh, I see.
The operator.
That's one of the first things I ask in troubleshooting the volumetrics. It's typically the first one that I ask is, what type of hot water switch are you using? Is it a toggle like a light switch, or is it a momentary? Does it spring back at you? And a lot of times, actually, it is going to be a toggle switch that's been installed. So typically that's a very quick, easy diagnostic and a fix for a technician.
One thing I came across were these really cool flyers. It says, let's fix it. And this is a couple of years ago. What was this about?
The Let's Fix It workshops actually were born from my experience at La Mazzocco doing tech support and listening to Randy Phillips, Mike Sable's observations when they were performing training classes. I had several technicians who called in who were women who said, oh, I'm so glad I got you. And it was not based on me being awesome at tech support, but it was based on me being female. And as a female, feeling more comfortable talking to a woman going through tech support, rather than, it removed a layer that was there and can make it difficult for women, other minorities, to be able to effectively communicate and troubleshoot in a way they understand and feel comfortable. Also in the training classes, it was observed how different women and men would participate in the class, and there was a comfort level that sometimes the men would push the women out of the way because they were excited and felt confident enough to jump in, where the women weren't. There was hesitancy and not a lot of confidence. So Let's Fix It was born to kind of remove that barrier and allow women, people of color, an opportunity to be able to dive in, investigate tech in a more comfortable, safe environment where they weren't being challenged or expected to know things. Also, there's a lot of baristas who are extremely curious about becoming a tech or their equipment, and it was at a basic enough level where they felt comfortable, where they would gain knowledge and understanding of their equipment without having to attend a tech class. So it was based on removing layers, encouraging more people, specifically women, but everybody was welcome. We wanted everybody to come, and allow a safe space to explore tech, having things explained, and also showcase that there are women, people of color, queer people being techs. So please, we want you to join us
in that process. Rachel, appreciate
Yeah.
you doing this and
Yeah.
being a part of something that helps. I mean, ultimately, it's going to help the industry, because I'm going to tell you, there's not enough technicians out there. Real quick, I have a story for you, Rachel. We had a female tech. She's gone on to other stuff, utilizing her college, but she wasn't with us too awful long, and had some good training, brought a lot to the table when she came to us. And there's some biases out there with our customers. And so she went to it was a chain corporate contract that she went to. And the owner that owns, I don't know, a dozen of these stores, he called me personally after she went to the first service call for that group. And I thought, oh no, this is not good. He mentioned that she had gotten there. And so I was expecting bad. And he was expecting bad when she got there, because there was some, like I said, some biases that he was not happy that we would send a female technician. And so he kind of stood over her shoulder for the duration of the service call. And after she left, he called me, and this is what he said. He said, if you can send her every time, I would love that, because she knew what she was doing. She came in, she said what she was going to do and did it. She wasn't on the phone, and she didn't fraternize. That's a big word for me. Whatever. She didn't socialize with the other people there. She came in, did her job, did it really well, and did a summary before she left, and he loved it.
Wow.
But
sounds like he's growing up a bit. Good for him.
He told me that he had to really look inside himself after that experience, that he had entered into that situation. So do you see a lot of that, Rachel? You see, well, fortunately on this situation, he saw that he was wrong in the beginning, and that he probably shouldn't have even questioned that situation. So he learned from it, and he grew from it. So,
which is great, but trying to empathize with that woman, she had to be perfect in order for him to accept that she did a good job.
Yep.
And potentially change some of his opinions.
Yeah.
And that is a huge barrier that women, queer people, people of color experience every single day. So it is upon us as an industry to find ways to make our profession more welcoming for those people. If we do not, then only the extraordinary are going to go into our field and survive, and there's a lot of talent
That's
out
a
there
good
that
point.
we're going to miss
Perfectly
if
said.
we do not change.